Finding the perfect horror game can be difficult, the reason being there are very rare gems when it comes to horror games. Today, I'm listing which the best horror games that have ever came into the market. Starting off with The Forest. The Forest is a fair, well-balanced survival game that nails the mix of crafting, exploration, and horror. It's not too easy, not too hard, just right. If you pay attention, you survive. If you don't, you die. Simple and effective. Health regenerates slowly, so unless you find medicine, running around carelessly will get you healed. The caves are terrifying. Some of the mini bosses caught me off guard, and with proper lighting, they can be very scary. Finding them is a bit of a pain that would sell my soul for a proper in-game map. I highly recommend this game to anyone who can tolerate gore. This can be just a survival game, as you can turn the cannibals off in the main menu. But to me, the cannibals are the meat and potatoes of this game, and I find myself sorely missing them should they not come and visit me a couple of times. Beyond the normal humanoid cannibals, there are mutants who can always be found in caves but will surface more frequently the more you piss the cannibals off. These are significantly tougher to kill and do a lot more damage. If they come near your base, they mean business, and while spider mutants take a couple of hits to tear anything down, Armsy rip a tree out of the ground and slam it into my base, destroying multiple defensive spikes and walls, allowing the small army of 10 or so he brought him with him to enter the base. The Sumo dude doesn't even need to do anything super special to wreak havoc. If he runs into your base, everything in his path will be destroyed until he stops running. I don't want to spoil these guys for you, so I won't talk much in detail as I did about the humanoid mutants. I would say that the creepy mutants are a lot more predictable than the humanoid ones, as they don't examine you when they see, decide to attack or not. Instead, they just charge at you. In simple words, the forest is all about surviving and getting out alive. Truly 10 on 10 and even better multiplayer. A must play for sure. Next up, we have Blair Witch. Blair Witch is a first-person story-driven psychological horror game based on the cinematic lore of Blair Witch. It's 1996. A young boy disappears in the Black Hill Forest, Burkittsville, Maryland. As Ellis, a former police officer with a troubled past, you join the search. What starts as an ordinary investigation soon turns into an endless nightmare as you confront your fears and the Blair Witch, a mysterious force that haunts the woods. It's a creepy game with some cool elements and interesting gameplay mechanics that feels a bit rough on the edge sometimes. The first half is basically a stroll through wood. I had several moments when I was completely lost, which got annoying at some points. The graphic of Blair Witch is pretty impressive, and the game oozes the atmosphere. The moments you are at entrance of the woods, the game sets the moods perfectly. Would have muted color palette, it all browns and greens and everything looks same, playing into the feeling of being lost in this massive woods. Though there are some issues. Gameplay is where Blair Witch messed up. The game is mostly a puzzle game. Every chapter you enter a location and you have to track down items to let you progress deeper into the woods. However, it mostly boils down in finding an item, letting Bullet get a scent of it, which is a companion, and then following him to the next location and repeating the same process until the game is over. There is a combat system, but you barely use it. And if you want a good ending, you can't use it at all. Bullet's AI is not perfect. There are some moments where he will simply not listen to you and run off or get stuck in bushes. Sound and voice acting are solid. The experience was very worthwhile, and I really enjoyed the story development. While the optimization could be improved, I hadn't had many issues. But ignoring the slight performance issues, the game is amazing. The negative reviews are all due to the optimizations and not the game itself. The confusing forest is hard to navigate and it creates a sense of being lost and helpless. But that's the beauty of Blair Witch. For someone who is looking to be on a teetering edge between reality and fantasy, the line of which gradually fading, and the further you go and harder it is to discern which plane you're currently on, Blair Witch is a must-play for you. Next up on the list is Madison, one of the most impressive, unusual opening to a horror game I have ever played. You're a teenage boy in a disheveled and a semi-darkened room, and your father is bashing on the door, crying and asking you what you have done. This is without a doubt the scariest game I've ever played. Not only are the jump scares usually effective, but the game also keeps you constantly stressed, which is what we expect when we're playing a horror game. Madison is an excellent psychological horror title, the story of which revolves around exorcism, otherworldly creatures, and tragic human fate. You'll be able to uncover the dark secrets of Maxwell's house and beyond, interact with the environment using an instant camera, store and use items, as well as solve puzzles that are, in my opinion, very well made. As a creative puzzle experience, Madison nailed it. The cogwheel in my brain were wiring the whole time. Reaching the end of the brain marathon left me with a lingering feeling of satisfaction. The story of Madison is good, but a little hard to follow at first. The story becomes very good when you start connecting the dots. They build a very unpleasant atmosphere in the story by having to listen to audio tapes of bad things that happened earlier in the house. The demons were extremely unpleasant and well done, especially Blue Knees. Even the art design of Blue Knees was well made when you read the specific book before you encounter him for the very first time. The game is not very good at guiding the player. One example is when you're walking through the tunnels with a lighter. Madison is a must-play for horror lovers. Its story is told masterfully, but is shrouded in mystery. The sound design is surely to provoke feelings of paranoia, and the puzzles are well crafted. All are good ingredients for a memorable and a scary psychological horror experience. Next up, Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia is a unique, refreshing game in a genre that has been filled with low-quality games. Despite being an indie game, Phasmophobia managed to surpass a lot of competitors by bringing an outstanding quality and a very good, unique experience. The idea here is that you enter a co-op ghost hunting experience. You rely on voice chat and communication and other ghost hunters as you try to find the ghost in that location. There are multiple maps you can browse, and each of them have spooky, eerie feeling. It shows that yes, you can never be safe, and you can find yourself dealing with multitude of different challenges. The cool thing regarding Phasmophobia is the fact that the ghosts are randomly generated, so you never know what kind of ghost you're dealing with. Instead, you must use your equipments and wits as you try to figure out what is happening and also what you can do. Phasmophobia is a very atmospheric game, and they do a very good job at keeping the gameplay immersive and very intense. The experience is very exciting, and you can find all kind of new things to try out and explore. Phasmophobia's gameplay loops is something that appears simplistic on a surface level but becomes so much more as you go deeper into it. It is essential that you come into Phasmophobia with a microphone. Some ghosts require you to use one. It's features like this that give Phasmophobia such an intense atmosphere. Not only the ghosts interact with you and the environment around you, but you can also interact with the ghosts. The devs consistently deliver updates, keeping the game fresh and engaging. I can't recommend Phasmophobia enough. I've been playing since the beta version as one of the best co-op experience out there. The team's passion and effort shine into every update, making it amazing to watch the game evolve. Next up, we have Visage. Visage is a first-person horror game. The game takes up in a huge house in which terrible things have happened. You are Dwayne Anderson, who wake up in an empty, bloody room. Dwayne will have relevant fragments of the house's dark history. While exploring, you have to watch out that you do not stay too long in the dark, as it will decrease your sanity. The lower the sanity gets, the more paranormal events will happen. Visage consists of 4 chapters. Visage can be finished within 5 hours, but you will probably need more time for your first playthrough. Also, it is a slow-paced, atmospheric game, so you should have some patience. The game doesn't tell you what to do, and you may end up being lost and running around the house for hours. Visage, without a shadow of doubt, the scariest game I've ever played. Everything from ever-changing house and spooky environments to the feeling of helplessness as you lose your sanity and you're met with a constant paranormal activity. This is graphically beautiful game and incredibly well detailed. The house and all of its corridors feel like a maze, but it's one that you feel you truly want, and to get lost in it, it's a sight to behold. Sound in the game is absolutely amazing too. I've never felt so creeped out in my life. The interface is extremely difficult to get used to, and I'm still fighting and fumbling trying to pick up and drop objects, change objects from hand to hand, and just interact with the environment. I kind of hate it, but at the same time, it truly adds another layer of dread to the game. This game is survival horror masterpiece. To put it simply, if you don't know anything about this title, you awake in an empty house that holds many secrets and terrors, far beyond even what your introductory dream sequence presents. In this game, if you allowed yourself to immerse in it and became inhabitant of this house, you can expect the simmering tension and dread to come out to boil with each step you take, where you will at many times wish that take several steps back before you even take one more step forward. If you allow yourself to respect this game for what it is, to play it at night with lights out and volume up, you can expect it to grant your wish to be scared, which it will grant in spades. I cannot recommend this game enough for anyone even slightly interested in being scared by a well-crafted horror game. Next up, we have Kholat. Kholat is a rare type of game, one that challenges you and harkens back into another era in many ways. Kholat is a first-person survival horror exploration game based on a real-life Dateloff past incident. Unlike many other survival horror games, Kholat isn't actually an action game or a crafting game with touches of horror. This game makes heavy uses of typical slow and unsuspecting explorer and bases its gameplay on it. It is more psychological approach to horror. The horror and fear aspects come from immense world Kholat puts you in. The sound of wind howling, the sound of old mountain creaking, and the wolf howling in distance all work together to create a very atmospheric and dark environment for you to explore. The game drew me in from environment to great story. The environment was really well done. For me, it is what made a lot of the atmosphere in the game. I did get lost a few times and ended up doing circles, but I did not mind that. The creatures in the game were a constant threat. You caught glimpse of them here and there from their footprints, yet eventually they would jump out from nowhere and get me. Inspired by the incident of Kholat Shekel, Dead Mountain in Mansi, also known as the Dateloff Pass incident, Kholat adds its own take of what the true story was. Narration is done by Sean Bean, and the notes you find are read by very nicely voiced individuals. Creepy things happen in the game, and there are certain situations that will make you feel very uneasy. The map is extremely difficult to figure out, as well as the compass. It feels like the only purpose is to confuse you, which might be the stupidest thing to say. But then again, I'm not very good with maps and navigations. Between music, the scenery feeling truly lost, and the constantly feeling watched wherever you go. This game is immersive and atmospheric in an absolutely best way. This game is horror done right. While there only one time that nearly gave me a heart attack, every moment of the gameplay was tense and uneasy. The soundtrack is quite good, although it's not necessarily one I listen to outside of the actual gameplay. A couple of tracks are sweeping and nice to listen, but by and large, the soundtrack is full of gripping drums and barreling low horns. It does a great job of keeping you always looking over your shoulder. There are some vocal tracks and they are used appropriately, one at the beginning and one towards the end, that fits well with a note you find just before you get a story beat, and one in the credits, in my opinion, was made the weakest of the vocals. All in one, a perfect game for me, or a must buy. Whatever scoring appeals to you, it's worth a buy, and even at full price. This is by far one of the best horror games to hit Steam in the recent memory, and from an indie studio, no less. Next up, Amnesia the Dark Descent, an horror game masterpiece that takes away all your feelings of safety and security and gives you two options, run or hide. This is an exceptionally unnerving way to play and will challenge you as fear grips you, forcing you to think quickly on your feet to stay alive. Play at night alone with headphones or with a whole bunch of your sizzy friends who can't stand horror anything. Amnesia the Dark Descent is one of the scariest games that I have ever played. It's not because of the number of monsters or the jump scares, but actual imagination. Most of the time, we're scared because of things that are simply happening, like, for example, self-opening doors, windows, or creepy screams from the basement of the castle. In that situation, you immediately think there's a monster nearby, but then you realize this was just a false alarm. You can also hear monsters screaming, but that doesn't mean you'll ever spot him. Of course, all these warnings aren't always fake alarms, so the player has to be prepared every moment. It's a great survival game. You have to look for items like oil for your lamp, tinder boxes to set fire to the torches, for example, other items that will help you complete this adventure. If you're into horror games, don't let this gem slip by. Many people said this game set the bar for horror games to a new heights, and rightly so. If you don't mind first-person horror and be defenseless, plunge into mind of Daniel as he explored the castle to find his true identity, what led him there, and why he gave himself the order to murder someone deep down in the castle. One of the best horror games, and I likely come back to this game time and time again for a genuine scare. Props to all the content creators out there for making custom stories for this game and making sure I can be scared and depressed whenever I feel like it. It is so well focused on all elements of horror that you are unable to even fight back against the enemy, forever doomed to listen and feel tear down your spine as you try to find cover or some place to take shelter from the sight of the enemy. Another feature of this game to note is the idea looking at your enemy makes you panic, which is quite genius. This allows you more realistic scare tactics, such as a quick glimpse of enemy and constantly trying to avoid its attention. Amnesia the Dark Descent has 4 possible endings. It's up to you to discover them all. They all have different points and give different perspectives on what you think would be best, so it's cool to visit them all. In the end, Amnesia is a game that you have to play. It has way too many things and makes it an awesome game, one that you need to enjoy in every aspect and absorb it all. And it's a game that you want to revisit from time to time and will still give you the same feeling as first time you play. Next up, Little Nightmares 1. 2 words, dark and creepy. Little Nightmares is far from a horror game, but does just enough to make you feel uncomfortable while you're playing it. Set in a Morphet cruise ship from hell where the guest-like feast on the flesh of children while they pig out animals. You'll find yourself escaping from humanoid-like creatures that truly are the product of nightmares. The story is amazing and you'll left shocked and dumbfounded at the end, not really knowing what's going on because of very little is actually explained, but enjoying every second of it nonetheless. The DLCs added even more to the sentiment, leaving you in a state of despair and questioning yourself. Why are we even here? Just to suffer? It is more creepy than scary. Something might spook and surprise you, but overall it's not that scary. It's an atmospheric game where you have to map out everything in your brain and just try different paths until you find the correct one. But be ready to flee. Little Nightmares is a puzzle platformer game with a very creepy and unnerving atmosphere. The visuals are outstanding, imaginative, and reinforce the unsettling feeling you'll get while playing. The sound design complements everything nicely as well, or the best storytelling techniques were employed here. You'll learn a lot about the bizarre world you found yourself in just by soaking in their surroundings. Carefully examining the environment provides the player with an extra hint and flavor. All objects or even shadows seem to be placed very deliberately, many of them foreshadowing things to come or provide a deeper insight into the main narrative. When playing for the second time, you'll find yourself noticing many clever things in the earlier chapters linking to the later one, or you may simply get to understand the vague and unclear parts during the first run. Unfortunately, it also means that if you're not that kind of a person that pays attention to this sort of things, you might miss a lot and be left confused at the end. Being an indie 3D puzzle solving platformer, I know I shouldn't be too demanding, but there's just something about the puzzles that didn't resonate with me. Most of the time, just by glancing around the room, you will know what exactly to do, and you could just breeze throughout all the chapters like there's no tomorrow. The whole game could probably be completed in about 2 hours plus 1 hour with DLC, and you will definitely end up with a feeling of wanting more. Little Nightmares is still one hell of a game, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's thinking of giving it a try. But because of its most moderate price and short length of a game, I would suggest wanting it from a discount or buying complete edition to get the most value of your money. Next up, we have Dead Space. Dead Space is a sci-fi horror game where you play as an engineer who is sent to find out what happened to Planet Cracker class fighters and along the way run into a heap of trouble. Gameplay itself is seamlessly and doesn't have any glitches than I ran into. One of the coolest things about Dead Space is anything you have to enter a vacuum or a zero gravity area. Once you do, you can no longer think linearly. You are forced to think three-dimensionally, and that really can throw you for a loop. There are a couple of spots where you can get so twisted around and backwards that you don't know if you're standing on a wall, ceiling, or the floor. Just keep your wits about you and focus on where you need to go, and it won't be too much of an issue. Other neat perks are that with every creature, you have a finishing move against them. Nothing like throwing a tentacle baby on the ground and kicking it across the room. Visually, this game is absolutely stunning. The amount of gore in the game could be put somewhere between epic and extreme. Throw that into the mix of whispers that you can hear as you walk down the dark corridors and jump scares, and you are in for a real treat. I can't even begin to tell you how many times the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And if you can play this game with surround sound, it multiplies the scare factor by at least 10 times. You will literally feel like as if you're being watched and followed throughout the game. Dead Space is an average length action game taking around 8 to 10 hours to complete. And while there is no multiplayer or any other content at all beyond the campaign, Dead Space still has high replayability. The perfect pacing and good length makes this game worth playing many times. Dead Space is not just one of the best games of its generation, but I would say it's one of the best games ever. There really isn't anything quite like this game, and you must play it. Next up, Little Nightmares 2. I really liked the game as a fan of the first part. They took into account everything that I was missing in the first one. Adding AI play is a very important rule and an integrated part of the game and is an interesting idea for the developer. The varieties of hats doesn't let you get bored. The Chivik level design is pleasing to the eye. It's very interesting to play with friends, solve puzzles, and generally spending time playing together. Recommended for purchase if you're a fan of the series, but if you want to immediately start for the second part, which is not related to the first, and you still need to go through the first for a better immersion of the universe and had a better idea of the game. The gameplay is involving and challenging, but let's face it, you're mostly dragged around on a leash. The leash lends itself perfectly, considering that Little Nightmares the rapid linear horror experience with the accent shifts from the player's agency to the tight set pieces, immerse and themes. Here being weak and bound is the whole point. Even the clunky combat, despite its skull-crushing viciousness, is anything but empowering and only amplifies the feeling of importance. You are everyone's prey, and the distorted world itself is a lurking big bad wolf. A huge part of the presentation is also on the audio design and music, and I can't stress enough the benefit of playing this with a good sound setup. Every booming footstep on the floor above you, the creak of rotting floorboard, and the rasping breaths of denizens of the dreary spaces you venture through are superb. Tobias Laiha wrote and produced the soundtrack, and he did an absolutely stupendous job with it, filled with chilling ambience and pounding oppressive and industrial beats. It was my flawless title of 2024. Little Nightmares 2 is nothing short of a platforming perfection, with a remarkable story in every mechanic from the original game, vastly improved upon to provide a far cleaner and more intuitive experience as a whole. While I recommend playing the first game prior to this, I don't believe it is entirely necessary, as they stand very much on their own with a connection between the two that wouldn't be lost in either order. This is definitely a must-play experience. Next up, The Evil Within. The Evil Within is a third-person survival horror game set in the present time and directed by Shinji Mikami, original Resident Evil designer. Players impersonate Detective Sebastian Castellanos, who is called along with his two teammates to Beacon Mental Hospital, where a suspect is on the loose after having slaughtered several people. Normally, this wouldn't be a strange situation for a seasoned detective. However, things soon started taking much a darker turn as unexplained paranormal events starts happening. The story of The Evil Within is exceptional. It takes the atmosphere and elements expected from a horror of high caliber and merges them into a clever narration. Originally, premises and concepts more tendent to the psychological thriller genre and integrated perfectly into a coherent and disturbing narrative. Gameplay-wise, the title doesn't bring groundbreaking innovations, but instead deliver a very well-executed system that is exactly what the fans of the genre always want more of. Stealth section where Sebastian has to hide from unspeakable horror, alternative with a plenty of other action segments which however can be approached in diverse ways, some more efficient than others. The variety offered in The Evil Within is way above average as far as this genre is concerned. Its relatively small weapon arsenal is compensated by plenty of upgrades across the board of each, while enemies, traps, puzzles, and unique situations continuously change throughout the adventure. Boss fights are generally well designed, unique, and come with hidden mechanics that may not be apparent at first, as it should be in a truly good survival horror game. The high number of secrets, side areas, and hidden items makes exploration always worthwhile. Gameplay is divided into exploration, combat, and character management. It took me around 19 hours in total to complete the game, while taking extra time to search every location carefully. The Evil Within puts the player's disposal many environmental elements and stealth mechanics in order to conserve ammo for when it is really needed. The sneak approach allows you to instantly kill any enemy from behind, but takes patient, calm, and planning to execute without getting spotted. Using oil barrels and traps is a good way to save ammo while dealing great damage. Overall, the game is one hell of a third-person horror game that must be experienced at least once. Next up, we have Resident Evil 4 Remake. The atmosphere is markedly darker and grittier, with almost all areas receiving extensive overhauls to better convey this tonal shift. More gore, darkness, and decay all around. Minimal UI further adds to the immersive feeling, while the top-notch graphics, effects, and audio complete the experience. The three main locations, village, castle, and island, are open for exploration and backtracking. However, you will need key items or story progression to unlock consecutive areas, meaning at first you'll mostly be on a linear path. The modernization process brought two major innovations. Firstly, forgot QTE, as they are now replaced by parry and counter systems using precise timing and single press prompt to stagger enemies or break free of melee. Your knife has durability, however, needs to be repaired at the merchant when it breaks. Boss fights generally have two phases and also feature hidden mechanics that can make your life easier if exploited correctly. The gunplay is satisfying and feels much better than the recent entries. Animation works of the players has waded into every shot, not sounding like a police shooter anymore, while enemies has a variety of response upon impact, ranging from gore decals and straggers to even dismemberment. Weapon recalls drives the point home but always requires getting used to. The diversity of enemy is great, from crazed villagers to mutant monstrosities like regenerators or something new every level. And if you add the boss fight, it becomes a perfect recipe for a horror experience. To my surprise, exploration was pretty good. Finding treasures and completing side quests was a pleasant distraction. There's even a mini game where I had fun the shooting range. The merchant and equipment upgrade system is perfect. Loot is scattered everywhere and you can do a small side quest quest to unlock more loot. The game is renowned throughout the adventure, offering in many environments, monsters, and bosses, all different from each other. In conclusion, the game is a must-play for any Resident Evil fan and for any survival horror player in general. The game offers you a new game plus as well as mercenary mode, which are pretty good replayability. A very good point of Remake is optimization, and the game runs incredibly well in 4K Ultra in 120 FPS, and it ran smoothly without any issues. Next up, Alan Wake 2. The story of Alan Wake 2 unfolds through two protagonists, Alan Wake and Sega Anderson. Both characters have a similar playstyle, each possess of unique upgrades and gimmicks. Alan Wake gimmick has a plot board while Sega Anderson has a case board. While the two characters mostly feel the same in combat and movement, their individual section plays out very differently. Wake is stuck in the dark place, having to navigate through a television night show and the deranged version of New York that's been conjured up, while Anderson revisits a noticeable change, Bright Falls, from the last time we were there 13 years ago. The contrast between the two protagonists is well executed, with distinctive different environments, characters, and atmosphere. The brief moment of levity almost serving the intermission in the multi-act play and are expertly crafted, offering a much-needed break from the game's overall tense movement. Wake's playthrough features the aforementioned memorable game movement, so original and extraordinary that it puts the game on a higher tier for me. Meanwhile, Anderson's section has a more charming characters, and I personally am a huge fan of Corskera Brothers commercials. This game is an absolute masterpiece in the horror storytelling and technical execution. The lighting is simply stunning, playing a crucial role in overall atmosphere. It's not just about making things look good, it actively shapes the experience, making every dark corridor and forest feel alive. The immersive tension hit hard, especially if you're not used to horror games. It takes a bit of time to adjust, but once you do so, it is impossible to stop playing. The way it makes you feel is something special, and I ended up loving it. The level design is so good that I keep stopping just to turn off my flashlight and admire how beautifully crafted the world is. Light isn't just a visual effect, it's a core gameplay element, and it is executed brilliantly. Audio effects and music are superb, and you should play with a headset. Making your way through the story of Sega and Alan is one thing, but Alan Wake 2 is also packed full of optional content. My favorite of these are the nurse rhyme based puzzles scattered all over the real world, which require you to paste toys you will find chalk drawings to match what's going on the point. There are also called catches placed in a sort of places where usually involve a puzzle to crack the code, keeping the goodies inside locked away. As you progress through the game as Sega, you will also find multiple handy objects that help you unlock other areas and places where you already visited, so prepare to do some backtracking if you want the best gear. Alongside everything else, this is a wonderful game accomplished. Alan Wake 2 is one of the most gorgeous games I've ever had the privilege of playing. The story of Saga and Alan takes some serious twists and turns on its journey through the darkness and features some of the greatest moments of the wonderful year of gaming. Remedy has truly made something special in Alan Wake 2, and I simply wasn't prepared to loving it as much as I do. Next up, Resident Evil 7. Capcom took a serious risk while making this game completely different from the previous title in this franchise. The usual third-person perspective has been replaced with a fresh, well-implemented first-person perspective. This not only adds the fear factor but also makes the game feel more realistic. The game takes place immediately after Resident Evil 6. You play as Ethan Winters, who received a video mail from his presumably dead wife Mia. The basic movements are perfectly okay, but you can't jump. Instead, the key meant for jumping is bound to blocking, which is vital during fights as it minimizes the damage you take, the damages that can otherwise be fatal. There are total 17 weapons in Resident Evil 7, out of which 6 are melee weapons, 1 is a bomb, and rest are guns. The weapon mechanics are on point. Apart from scaring you and pushing you into the corner, the game also tests you with a series of puzzles. To be honest, the puzzles aren't that hard to solve as the solutions are right in front of you. The light shape puzzles are the ones that annoyed me the most, as it took me a while to get in the right shape. Graphically, the game is as realistic as a 2017 game can get. The nail the airy and disgusting surroundings, the disgusting part almost made me barf. The game stands as a prime example of how a horror game should be. The details they added are wonderful, everything is detailed, and even non-interactable objects. Sound plays a vital role in a horror game. The right soundtrack set the desired mood. Resident Evil 7 was excellent in choosing the perfect sound and also the placement of the sound. Sometimes the build-up sounds but nothing happened. Clever way to trick the player into expecting something only to give them nothing. Perfectly executed tactic for a horror game. If you really want to get scared off your chair, then you got the right game. Resident Evil 7 has a lot of content to offer. accompanied by a perfect blend of horror and experience. One of the scariest games I have ever played so far. Next up, Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation is a nerve-wracking first-person stealth horror game. Explore a huge space station, complete tasks while remaining hidden from a xenomorph, craft tools to distract and try to survive. The year is 2137. You play as Amanda Ripley, daughter of Ellen Ripley, who went missing 15 years ago. The flight recorder from your mother's ship, Nostromo, has been found and is currently being held at Sevastopol. You're being sent as a salvage mission with a small team abroad, Torn, to finally get some answers. Once you arrive, you notice the ship seemed damaged and is not communicating. The story is great. I love how it feels like a sequel to the movie, trying to figure out what happened in the first movie. Alan was, of course, the last survivor in a 1979 movie that took place 15 years before the game's story. The game is mainly focused on a single-player campaign. In a stealth survival horror game, you can hide in closet, under tables, and in bed. But don't run. Making noise will drew the alien right to your position. If it sees you and you don't have anything that light it on fire, you are dead. You might get extremely lucky, but 9 out of 10 times, you are good as dead, especially on harder difficulties. You have access to several weapons, including a revolver, shotgun, stunt rod, flamethrower, bolt gun, and using them will certainly attract alien, and the ammo is very scarce anyway. So it might be wise to save ammo for emergencies and the time you really need it. There are also a lot of craftable items, including a flare, molotovs, medkits, EMP mines, and noisemakers. I don't use them a lot, but they are damn handy. Just throw a noisemaker between the human enemies and watch as the alien kills them for you. Then just hide or throw the molotov onto the alien to make it go away. EMP mines are extremely useful against androids. There are a few moments in the game where you have to deal with a lot of them, and they came very handy. The game has truly amazing graphics and even better sound design. Somehow the sound knows how to raise the level of fear even higher. The spaceship, or at least the visual style, looks exactly like how it did in the movie. Everything from the walls, doors, chairs, toys, booths, terminals has been faithfully recreated. If you thought the movie was scary, the game will have you screaming on the inside, frustrated but paralyzed by the terrifying gameplay. I do think it's a great experience that you should at least try it once if you don't have any heart problems. Next up, we have Soma. Soma is a first-person horror game made by same developer that created Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Similar to Amnesia, players in Soma have no way to fight back against enemies and must use evasion and stealth to progress while they are being haunted. Soma takes place 100 years in the future, where humanity has been driven into the brink of extinction by the impact of a giant meteor on the surface, replicating the same scenario that killed the dinosaur. The only survivors are those who were not on the surface during the apocalypse, namely those underwater research facility Pathos 2. Player must harness their evading skill and master the courage to brave the depths of the ocean and corrupted robots in order to try to find out what is going on the facility and how they arrived in Pathos 2. Soma has a very simple gameplay. Simon has no weapons, so he must use basic movements, crouching, walking, and sprint to evade enemies. He can also interact with objects and computer monitors to learn more about the world or access important information. Story gets much and much deeper physiologically than basic premise would suggest, involving topics like what is meant to be human, what makes individual themselves, whether life inside a digital world is equal or less than one based on reality. Monsters and enemies have different mechanics depending on enemy itself. Some enemies are fully blind but have excellent hearing, so you can crouch walk right past them, but you can never run. Objectives are repetitive very often, and there is no objective indicator that you should take care to remember what you have been told and explore the area thoroughly. The game visuals do their job very well. The manufactured and the research-oriented nature of the facility reinforce the inhuman atmosphere, which pairs well with gel-infused abominations that attempt to mangle you during your search. Soma doesn't have much in the way of music or sound effects like Amnesia, but what few are present do their job very well. Enemies make distinctly inhuman sounds on a regular basis, letting you keep track of them more easily as well as scaring you. The voice acting, however, is quite excellent and has a real motivation behind most of it. This is especially good considering how much is present throughout the game. Soma is a worthwhile horror game both in looking and a good horror experience, and for those who enjoy a truly thought-provoking story in their games, a trait that's sorely lacking in many modern titles. Next up, we have Silent Hill 2 2024 Remake. Silent Hill 2 2024 is a remake of the original game that modernizes the gameplay to be the less clunky while also adding more content, new endings, and fixing a lot of original flaws. Even with all the changes, Bloober has made sure they respect the original version and keep the essence of the game intact, as the town is just as scary and unsettling as it always been. The remake doubles the duration of the original game, lasting around 14 hours on an average, while the original was around 8 hours, giving you more content to enjoy and digest. The details in the game are also a nice touch. Being able to break window and cars and stand for ammo and healing items makes you look at the scenery with more attention. The game also introduces new ending, making a second playthrough more enticing, and the speedrun challenge on beating the game in less than 10 hours. Replayability to the adventure once finished the core of it. Puzzles have been revamped too, sometimes becoming easier but generally harder, and the answer from 23 years ago in the original won't work in the remake. In addition, each difficulty level has different puzzle solutions, and some even have randomly generated ones, adding to the challenge. By adding more enemies, there is always a sensation that something can jump from darkness to attack you. Being wary of the fact that the foes can appear at the moment adds tension to the atmosphere of the game. The sound design is so impressive that I doubt there would be a better example in 2024. Enemies move around and background noises created the "did that came from the game or real life" effect, giving more immersion. If you have a controller on vibration mode, the rain can mimic the vibration of enemies, meaning the rain provides cover for them not only visually but also in gameplay as well. The Silent Hill 2 remake is a masterclass in psychological horror. It respects the original in all the right way while bringing you modern era with technical and narrative flourishment and truly evaluate the experience. It solidifies its place as not only one of the best games of this generation, but also the best remakes of all time. Next up, Outlast 2. Outlast 2 is one of the scariest, creepiest, and the most stressful game in my library, and one of the most few games that really scared me and kept me under pressure. Outlast 2 is a terrifying title. A blinding light masquerading as a god at the end of the tunnel plummets your character into an abandoned village and amidst a religious civil war. Regardless of the occasional questionable writing, Outlast 2 provides a bloody disgusting joyride. The sequel also improved on predecessors with more intense gameplay mechanics, even though it falls short on other facets. Survive a frantic civil war by traversing stealthily throughout an abandoned village, deep forests, rivers, docks, Staten shrines, and ungodly might. Outlast 2 is just like its predecessor, both having very subtle, hidden story, but that I mean you have to go through collect notes to actually understand what's going on in the environment surrounding you. Outlast 2 is, however, a lot forgiving in the aspects as you don't have to collect every note to understand what's going on. Outlast 2 look amazing. The environment looks incredibly detailed with a lot of houses in which cultists reside, having a lot of attention in detail, such as portraits of the leaders, crosses, a bunch of other religious items. The design of the section is incredibly detailed, ranging from caves, church, slaughterhouses, and more, making it a treat to look around. Also, the enemies have some cool design choices, making them stand out from one another. Outlast 2 has some amazing audio design. Since it takes place outside, you hear a bunch of wilderness noises which help you build an amazing atmosphere. Also, noise become a gameplay feature in Outlast 2. The tracks used in chase sequence are amazing and really keep you on the edge of your seat. Outlast 2 is pretty much identical to the first game apart from a few minor differences. One difference is the audio tool. Your camera is equipped with an audio detection tool which helps you track footsteps of your enemy, making it easier to avoid them. Another difference is the ability to record the world around you. One of the most disturbing games I've ever played. Not quite the same pacing or vibe as the original Outlast, it is more like a whistleblower, except more open world and with even more horrifying scene and few jump scares, although they are pretty good few. As a result, every snapping twig, every distant scream, and every corpse grips you with a fear of more tightly than if you actually had a way to defend yourself. But this also means the core gameplay cannot evolve. As you progress, the chase sequence you survive at the start of the game are essentially identical to the situations you encounter near the end. Tension is really what Outlast 2 does the best. The gameplay may stumble in certain ways, but you're always depth immersed in the atmosphere. A must play for sure. Next up, we have Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 8 or Village is direct sequel to the previous installment. It continues the story of Ethan Winters following a narrow escape from the Bakers. 3 years have passed. Ethan and Mia are now under protection of Chris and living a happy married life. The newborn daughter Rose seemed to have been sealed this happiness. Despite their deep emotional scars, everything seemed quite good. So of course it can't last. Attacked by their own protector, the family is torn apart, their fragile happiness destroyed, and Rose kidnapped. Ethan finds himself tangled in yet another biowarfare conspiracy and has to fight to protect those he loves. Village shines thanks to the merging constant fast-paced action and straightforward yet rewarding exploration in its varied beautiful environments along with a cheesy narrative that is however saved by its charismatic antagonist. Thus, it is aware of its strong and weak aspects, balancing them well and delivering a AAA title that might not be remembered for its complex narrative or revolutionary gameplay, but just being a damn enjoyable addition to the series, and that is enough. Instead of bloated content, it provides a few hours of honest fun. Just the atmosphere itself is so captivating, galvanating through an old yet beautiful castle while a snowstorm roars outside its massive walls feels both tense and cozy. That is the only one part of its journey, though as you will visit various diverse environments where each tries to represent different take on horror genre, some which truly surprise me. The gameplay, which excels with its combination of action, exploration, and horror elements, constantly change between every few minutes, creating a swift pace that never bored me. Perhaps it could be even more described as a nod to the series as a whole, and if it tries to combine the best parts of its popular installments and come with something for everyone. Such an approach usually ends up with a disaster, but seeing how much I enjoyed playing Village, it proves me wrong in this case. The graphics are quite beautiful. The environments, which can at times open and bright with enough to go around, are very well made and there are a lot of attention to detail. The game is heavy, bleak, terrifying atmosphere and is remarkable. At times, I couldn't help but feel this disturbing feeling of vulnerability and anxiety, always expecting a jump scare or something of sort of at every turn and corner. Resident Evil Village is undoubtedly my most delightful surprise which I have ever played. Capcom did everything right this time, from narrating and atmosphere to gameplay mechanics. Village is without a shadow of doubt one of the best survival horror game experience out there. Last but not the least, and the most horrific games of all time, Outlast 1. Outlast is a unique first-person investigation horror game that pits you against your own sanity, every moment riding on tension and anxiety. Armed with nothing but a camera and a notepad and Olympian, you play as Miles Upshur, an investigative journalist with a ball of steel and dedication to shock footage, revealing Louis Bloom from film Nightcrawler. Limited resource horror genre games are popular niche among the gaming community, and Outlast was the poster child of rising market for so long for good reason. While no combat skills whatsoever, you're tasked with running your life and hiding from most of the threats you encounter. These elements make the game a fresh escape from the mainstream style in gaming we're subjected to, which in itself intensifies the excitement and reward the game offers to those dedicated to its completion. While the story may appear distant at the first glance, it develops vaguely enough into the final act where the bits and pieces of it tucked away in documents and dialogue to satisfy your bidding curiosity. The game is at its core a survival horror experience, relying heavily on intense atmosphere or so sweet immersion that some games lack. The moment you sneak into the asylum, up until the very end, Outlast managed to keep you in the sense of anticipation. The game has a variety of enemies with only a repetitive ones used for jump scares, which are quite nice honestly. From beginning to end, you feel very tense, as if like someone constantly is watching you and will be chasing you after. The little details make quite a difference as the place looks ruined and literally trashed everywhere you go, with some expectation in place where people have not completely lost their sanity. As for tiny details, you can see the bloodstaining and skin's clothes and more violent characters, and even staples and stitches on heavily disfigured faces of others. It was a bit difficult to stay calm with the music and sound effect, making every new area feel like you're going to die down the hallway. Sounds are quite distinct, and there's a clear sudden change in sound when an enemy spots you and chases you after. There's not much else to be said beside the voice acting is quite excellent, though sometimes a little low due to the louder music. The music changing based on different areas was a nice touch and never felt stale. Outlast is an absolutely terrifying game that left me with a lasting impression. For the moment I stepped into the abandoned asylum, I was on the edge, constantly looking over my shoulder. Outlast is a must-play for fans of horror games. It's not just a game, it's an experience. It made me feel truly vulnerable and powerless, and scares are intense and unforgettable. It left me with a lasting impression that I couldn't shake off for days. I highly recommend it to anyone who loves horror games and is looking for truly terrifying experience.